No. Wei Wuxian, reluctant to admit defeat, feeling embarrassed after boasting so much. He reached one hand behind his back to rub his much-abused old waist, trying to straighten up. However, he immediately grimaced in pain and shrank back as he moved a spot. The sharp, stinging sensation transformed into a suppressed whimper. Lan Wangji saw him rest his face into the pillow, knowing he was uncomfortable. He gently massaged Wei Wuxian's waist with one hand, asking softly, "Does it hurt here?" Wei Wuxian, barely able to speak, murmured, "Everything hurts, especially down there." Lan Wangji's gaze followed the curve of Wei Wuxian's waist down, then shifted back. His expression changed slightly, as if in apology. There was indeed no way he could massage that area for him. Wei Wuxian finally understood what it meant to reap what you sow. Swallowing his pride, he said with a shameless grin, "Lanjan, I think that practicing the dual cultivation technique too often can easily lead to mishaps. You see, the way we just did it was clearly not right. If we end up with a cultivation deviation, it will be terrible." Lan Wangji, like a child who had done something wrong, lowered his gaze slightly, showing a trace of guilt. "I'm sorry. Earlier I didn't control my own strength." Wei Wuxian's heart softened. He gave Lan Wangji a gentle kiss on the lips and said, "You don't need to apologize. We can take our time, there's no rush. Let's rest for a few days, and I'll recover." Lan Wangji gently pinched Wei Wuxian's earlobe with one hand to interrupt him, while his other hand softly stroked along Wei Wuxian's spine. His lips opened and closed slightly, as if he felt a little embarrassed, but his light-colored eyes showed a sincere and serious glimmer. "Tomorrow night I will be gentler." What tomorrow night? Wei Wuxian slapped Lan Wangji's chest in a hurry and said, "No, it's not about being gentle or not. Lan Zhan, I mean." Lan Wangji pulled the chattering person into his arms and kissed the tips of his hair, saying, "It's time to sleep." No, I must make this clear to you. One does not talk while eating, nor while sleeping. But, Lan Zhan, sleep." Lan Wangji suddenly recalled the scene from the morning after their wedding night. That day, he woke up the same way, finding Wei Wuxian nestled in his arms. He immediately recalled the events of the previous night. Everything became blurry after he drank the wedding wine. The two of them seemed to have been playful for quite some time, before falling asleep. He held Wei Wuxian's waist tightly. It was time to get up, but a voice in his head told him to hold on a bit longer. Another voice said, "He was already yours." Mine? Wei Ying, was he mine? Lan Wangji had never truly understood the full meaning of fate and marriage. He only knew that from then on, the two of them would live together, belong to each other, and never be separated. In his 15 years of life, he had made very few choices that truly belonged to him. His surname, his given name, and his courtesy name were not his own choices. His daily schedule, meals, every hour, and even every minute were meticulously arranged by his elders. His every word and action were guided and confined by the 3,000 rules carved in the discipline stone. All he needed to do was adhere to them. His own thoughts and feelings were sometimes so insignificant. When they did exist, they were filled to the brim with the expectations of his elders. What kind of person he would become and what kind of things he would do had all seemingly been meticulously planned out since the day he was born. Until he faced the first major choice of his life, when the matchmaking letters from the prominent families of the cultivation world flew to Yunshan like swallows. The disciples in the letter hall were overwhelmed each day. They recalled the chaotic and bustling days during Lan Xichen's marriage selection, working through night and day, lamenting that they could only endure this once in their lifetime, as another occurrence would make their golden cores tremble. Now, the popularity of their second young master even surpassed that of the eldest, and one by one, they expressed their exhaustion. They were grateful that the Lan clan had only 2 esteemed sons, and not 3 or 4. The elders all remained calm and composed, seemingly never doubting the qualities and status of their children. When the marriage selection list was presented to Lan Wangji, the array of clan names and individual names appeared to him as indistinct clouds, with nothing standing out. Even when these names were matched with faces in the elegance room, and the young ladies appeared in front of him with their voices and spirits, they still remained as phantoms in his mind. It was not because Lan Wangji was distracted or disdainful of outsiders. With his extraordinary memory and the meticulous diligence he applied to his studies, he committed every detail of the young ladies' appearances and backgrounds to memory, without missing a single one. If questioned during an exam, he could even recount every detail of those meetings effortlessly and flawlessly. However, he was utterly at a loss when it came to making a choice, until he met Wei Ying. His destined person had a lively face and voice, a face full of smiles and a bright, clear voice. Despite the twists and turns, when he reached out his hand to that person in front of the hall, that person took his hand too. In that moment, he knew Wei Ying had finally belonged to himself. But what about now? As Wei Ying lay in his arms, he was no longer so certain. Did this mean that he could hold him in his arms like this, without any reservations for every day and every night to come? His chest was enveloped by an unprecedented fluttering feeling. Lan Wangji couldn't recall ever having the urge to hold someone else so tightly. In the past, he was averse to even the slightest touch from others. But with Wei Ying, it seemed different. Gently rubbing his cheek against Wei Ying's neck for a while, it seemed that his own sandalwood scent had mingled with the dense, soft black strands of Wei Ying's hair. He used the tip of his nose to gently part the hair, pressing his nostrils against the exposed skin. The sandalwood scent seemed to mix with Wei Wuxian's natural scent, creating an indescribable aroma, a scent that smelled very pleasant. Wei Wuxian's neck was very warm, even hot. He noticed that Wei Wuxian's body temperature seemed to be higher than his own. He recalled how Wei Wuxian was always lively and energetic. Wei Wuxian radiated warmth from his entire body. His whole body was very soft. His shoulders were firm. His chest should be as well. He didn't dare move, just used the hand that was around Wei Wuxian's waist to press lightly. Yes, his lower abdomen felt very solid. The person in his arms mumbled something, and Lan Wangji was startled slightly. He lifted his head, preparing to let go. Wei Wuxian scratched his chest lightly with one hand, then placed it back on his waist. It seemed he felt Lan Wangji's arm and hugged it to his chest, while stretching his legs slightly, his thighs and calves brushing against Lan Wangji's body. Moments later, a gentle snoring sound could be heard. Wei Wuxian's waist was very soft, but the softest part was naturally further down. Do not look if it is improper. Do not touch if it is improper. Do not bump into if it is improper. Lan Wangji shook his head, trying to dismiss the strange words of caution from his mind. This wasn't improper. They had gotten married, so this was proper and lawful. Yes, he confirmed to himself over and over again that in the family rules about the way spouses should interact, a husband is allowed to, although he did not understand what the term sleeping in the same bed truly meant. Among the 3,000 family rules, it was neither recorded nor had anyone ever explained it to him. But since they were sleeping in the same bed, it should be natural to be able to touch each other's bodies, right? Moreover, Wei Ying didn't seem to object. This thinking felt like he was taking advantage of Wei Ying. Should he wake him up to personally ask for his consent? He didn't remember if he had already kissed or hugged him after getting drunk last night. Lan Wangji felt a bit frustrated suddenly. Why was his tolerance for alcohol so poor? He wanted to remember every little detail of his wedding night with Wei Ying. Since it was permitted by etiquette, Wei Ying shouldn't refuse him, right? Thus, this strange feeling rising from deep within his body was also proper and lawful. Lan Wangji's ears were filled with the sound of his own breathing, which gradually turned into panting. It seemed as if the little bit of air in his lungs was burning arduously, and his blood was lightly boiling. Something must be wrong with him. Otherwise, why would he feel slightly dizzy despite trying so hard to breathe?